Thank you, Jim, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Trevor.
Happy Veterans Day. And I heard you did something special this morning.
Yeah, Homes for the Brave did a 5K run. I guess I could call it a run, even though I don't know if what I was doing was running. But yeah, it was a little chilly. No, it was great fun to be out there. You know, Homes for the Brave is an amazing organization. They provide homes for homeless veterans up in Bridgeport. And yeah, this was a fundraiser, and it was a chilly but fun way to wake up on Veterans Day.
That's pretty cool. I do recall, I believe Connecticut is way ahead on our home housing our veterans. Is that correct?
Yeah,
really ahead.
Yeah, there was at some point when I think the governor announced that there were no, it was basically zero. But yeah, no, Connecticut does a great job on that.
We need more of that. That's awesome. Okay, Jim's here to look back. We're going to talk about unpack the elections, which of course we're both smiling, big smiles. Because, right, it was a good,
how much difference 1 year makes, right?
Blue day.
That's right.
Right. Okay, who do you want to start with? Who excited you the most about winning?
Well, I have to say I have sort of a personal stake in this because two of my colleagues, of course, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, Abigail in particular, first ever woman governor in Virginia. Remember, Virginia's been around since like 1607, right? So we're not just talking
400 years.
Yes, exactly, 400 years. But they're just terrific women. One a CIA officer, Abigail, and one a helicopter pilot for the Navy, Mikey. So these are just as they say, kick-ass women, and now they'll be running two really important states. And they won. We felt pretty good at the end, but we were, New Jersey moved hard in Trump's direction, and Virginia, of course, previously had a Republican governor.
How many points? They were double-digit points, right?
They were double-digit points. That's exactly right. Big wins.
Happy day.
And big wins, the line, except for Donald Trump, by the way, who was like, yeah, we got crushed on, like the congressional leadership in the Republican, well, in blue states, blue people won. Meanwhile, Trump comes out and says, no, we got crushed. Pretty much anywhere you look in the United States, the Democrats had a huge recovery. Pennsylvania Supreme Court seats, like Mississippi Public Utility Commission. And again, what a difference. It was only a year and 2 weeks ago that Donald Trump swept it, and they took the House and the Senate. So boy, politics is moving fast.
It sure is. Now, we have not talked about a very important name in this whole story, Mamdani.
Right. Yeah. What a phenom in New York. And here's my own take. First of all, the guy won the primary and he won the election, right?
Sure did.
And so you have to respect that. Here's what I'm excited about. A lot of people got really upset or worried about Mamdani. And here's what I think is going to happen. I think that businessmen, businesswomen in New York are going to see that he's actually going to govern New York in a reasonable way. There was all sorts of concern about whether he was anti-Semitic because of the globalizing the Intifada thing. I think that an awful lot of New York's Jewish population is going to see that I hope anyway, that he's not an anti-Semite.
Yes.
The progressives in the party are going to see that it's good to put forward bold ideas. Now, I don't happen to agree with a bunch of those ideas, but that it's really a lot harder to govern than it is to campaign.
Of course. Now, he had one message and he was so disciplined, and it is really hard sometimes when you're on the campaign trail to be really disciplined, but he stuck to affordability. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And that resonated. So, again, and both of us might have questions about how he's going to actually make that happen, but it's certainly connected. And our president campaigned on affordability, and are things more affordable today?
They are not more affordable.
No.
Even though he says they are, there's not a single thing I think that is more affordable. Not electricity, not rent, not housing. And it's interesting because we could talk for 2 hours about why Donald Trump won. There's a lot of reasons for that. But it was mainly that Donald Trump was saying your groceries and your housing cost too much. And then he does a year in which he makes peace in the Middle East. And by the way, thank you for that. But starts building ballrooms, and he completely took his eye off affordability, and that opened the door, of course, for all these Democratic candidates to say, no, we're paying attention to the affordability thing.
I appreciate it. Just for listeners out there, we love our first responders, and it just went by.
So. When they interrupt the radio show.
It's okay. It's all part of life right here. I do think we have a big shift. It's very, it makes me so happy. And even right here in Greenwich, a very big deal happened. This is only 2 times in 100 years right? 100 years that we have our Board of Estimate and Taxation, but we're going to be run by Democrats, and they won by a large margin.
Yep.
So it's a true mandate. Have you been watching that race?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I really did. I have a lot of friends on the BET, actually on both sides of the aisle, and you know, it really tells you something because, of course, Freddie Camillo, the first selectman, wins pretty big,
He
and you know he's a
did.
very popular guy,
Yes, he
and the
is.
Republicans retained a number of the town roles. But you know, and I didn't unpack this in real detail, but there was a lot of concern about the Republicans on the BET, you know, delaying the Central Middle School project. Anyway, and so Greenwich voters said, "Yeah, we'll try something different," which is good for Democrats and I think good for the town ultimately.
So good for the town. And I think the thing that really appealed to me was Democrats flipped the script on this financial, you know, Democrats are irresponsible when it comes to, you know, spending and taxing, et cetera. And this group of people, the Board of Estimate and Taxation, are Democrats, are incredible professionals. And between all of them, there's like at least probably 200 years in the world of finance, which you are from as well. So, and these people are saying, these Democrats are saying, we need a long-term plan. We need to plan for the future, and we need to do it responsibly. And this is what the voters are asking for. And I'm so glad to hear this for our town.
Yeah, yeah, no, and they, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the 6 Democratic members of the BET have, as you said, decades and decades worth of financial experience, and there's also a good conversation to be had. You don't want, as a town, certainly the town of Greenwich, to take on a lot of debt or too much debt. But if you're going to spend, I mean, I think people get this. If you're going to spend $50 million to build something beautiful for the town of Greenwich that is going to last for 40 years, why do you need to pay for it entirely in year one? Businesses don't do that. If businesses are buying an asset, they'll borrow it, you know, in the same period of time that asset is valuable. So when you do what Greenwich has always done, what you do is you ask everybody in town right now to fully pay for the stuff that is going to be serving their children. And so, look, you know, you don't want to overdo it on debt, but I think the Democrats are going to try to make this argument in a way that is responsible and that actually may lower our taxes at some point.
Exactly. And sort of jumping from crisis to crisis is far more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Something, a roof falls in a school, we're not AD, it goes on and on. Anyway, this is really, really good news. So, so takeaways for you from that particular day and time, because, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel like that moment when Obama won, like there's hope. How do you feel?
So takeaways: ruthless focus on affordability, politically speaking. Hard, right? Because, you know, in my opinion, the only way you're going to make housing more affordable is to make a lot more housing, right? Basic supply and demand. And, you know, you can't snap your fingers and create 5,000 units of housing in Fairfield County, but we can start that process of really cranking that up. How are we going to make electricity prices? You know, everybody's talking about electricity prices. The only way you're going to make electricity prices lower is by generating more electricity and having more transmission lines. None of that stuff happens overnight. So it's a huge policy challenge, but we cannot take our eye off and by the way, this goes back to James Carville. Both of us are old enough to remember James Carville, who in the Clinton campaign was saying, it's the economy, stupid.
Oh my God,
we forget that. And God knows Donald Trump forgot that, right? As he ran around the world and, you know, by the way, slashed Medicaid and stuff. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like kind of a last kind of concern, because I personally have the Affordable Care Act. I'm on Access Health here in Connecticut. I do know my premiums are going to triple, I believe, and it's a little upsetting. I know that we a few Democrats at 8, I believe, crossed over, agreed to do this shutdown, and we are not probably going to get to this tax exemption or continuation of the taxes. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I wish that the 8 Democratic senators had agreed to do what they did when they had an ironclad vote to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies in the Senate and the House. Now, that would have been a little harder because you would have had to get Johnson on board. But that would have been the way to proceed here. And I wish that they had gotten that. They didn't get that. What they did get, though, is, okay, let's assume everything goes okay in the House at the end of this week. The government will reopen. One real achievement was that I think all Americans now understand stories like yours. Apparently, I didn't know about you seeing tripling of your health insurance, but people are saying, so what are you guys going to do about that? And if the answer from the Republican president and the Republican Senate and the Republican House is nothing, you know, a year from now, the midterms will be brutal for that
Exactly. Party. Well, in fact, there were some people who are like, you know what, Democrats, let them do this, right? make this happen, because a lot of the pain that the big beautiful bill is going to be dealing out is going to actually hit after the midterm elections. But this one particular issue, no, prior to it. And that is why we're going to see some real, well, I think we're beginning to see this move over to the blue side.
Right now. I mean, people are opening those envelopes and reading about their premiums. And of course, SNAP, same deal. You're right. You know, the so-called big beautiful bill, the devastation that is going to be wreaked on Medicaid doesn't kick in until 26. However, SNAP benefits, and I was pretty amazed to learn, I should have known this, but something like 1 in 8 Americans has some sort of nutritional support, which we should talk more about. How is it the wealthiest country in the world has 1 in 8 Americans? But anyway, the point is that you know, we have lots of SNAP recipients here in the state of Connecticut, but as a percentage of our population, deep red states, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, a much higher percentage of those folks in those states are on SNAP. And they just got a real lesson about whether President Trump cares about their ability to feed their kids or not. And the answer is, not only is the answer not no, but when the courts say yes, Donald Trump is sending his people to courts to say, no, we really don't want to feed these people.
Literally double down.
Literally double down.
Unbelievable. Like, I hope people understand what just happened, because the SNAP will get funded now because the shutdown will be turned off, or will be, you guys will be back to work. But the Trump administration actually went and said to states, this is Sunday noontime, if you sent money back out, take it back.
Right.
Take it back. And I know that we in Connecticut, they've done a great job funding, and they were like, I think Lamont did come out and said, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Right. I mean, these benefits actually got paid out to people. And what you're gonna you're gonna call up a lower income family and say, hey, that $130 you got to feed your kids, we want that back. I mean, you know, I guess the best I can say about that is we're approaching the Christmas season. You know that scene where the Grinch goes into Whoville and is like taking down the Christmas trees? Really? Is that what you want to be politically?
It's Scrooge and the Grinch. It is Scrooge and the Grinch. Lisa Hannock, our executive producer, just waited. But it is just mind-boggling. So I just hope the American people really are clued in, and I guess this is hitting all of us really dramatically, at least personally. I'm not, the ACA thing is not going to be fun January 1st.
No. And I mean, again, we better fix it. And there's going to be no doubt in anybody's mind come November of the next election, if we don't get that done, who stopped that from getting done? I mean, I don't like government shutdowns, because in a government shutdown, an awful lot of people get hurt. But this government shutdown really did serve to highlight, you know, and there's millions of Americans who are in your position who are going to see their premiums triple and quadruple. And so anyway, the issue has been raised, and hopefully we'll deal with it. And if the Republicans refuse to deal with it, you know, a year from now, people are going to say, wait a minute, you wanted food back from hungry kids, you didn't do anything about the tripling of, so that'll have some severe political implications.
And right before Thanksgiving, during a time that there's a barroom full of people eating a lot of food and doing a great Gatsby
Mar-a-Lago with a woman in a bikini twirling in an oversized champagne glass. I mean, I've been in politics a little while. I really don't understand the politics of saying, yeah, you don't get food stamps, but come to Mar-a-Lago and eat caviar and look at the half-naked woman in the champagne glass. How do you do that?
Mind-boggling. So talking a little bit more about this shutdown, because of all the people that were so impacted, it's actually going to really impact our economy. I think when we look back, it's going to hit the GDP number pretty broadly, but we had TSA people who couldn't pay their bills. We had air traffic controllers, and then Trump went off on the air traffic controllers over the weekend. I don't know if you noticed his tweet.
Yeah.
Like, you're not good Americans, or oh, horrible.
Yeah. Can you imagine these guys who, you know, literally our lives are in their hands, and Donald Trump is trashing them? Yeah. I don't get it.
It's unbelievable. All right, so we've gotten through a lot, and you have been kind of shut out of work for a while now. How many weeks is it?
I think we're coming on. We have not been in session since September 19th. So what is that? That's 2 months. And why? You know exactly why. Because there is a discharge petition that when Adelita Grijalva, who is the newly elected, well, not newly elected, she was elected 3 months ago, and the speakers refused to swear her in, because when she swears in, she will sign something called a discharge petition, which will basically, we don't need to get into what discharge petition is, but it will force a vote on a bill to require the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. So Speaker Johnson, he of profound Christian religious faith, has done something unprecedented, not sworn in a woman member from New Mexico in order to stop the release of the Epstein files. Fortunately, that game is over this week. Adelita will be sworn in. I try really hard, because I do a lot of serious stuff like national security, to not say the word Epstein, but it is important for people to understand why there has been no Congress of the United States for the last 60 years,
And
60 days. Sorry,
just
60
say
days.
that one more time. Our House of Representatives have not been working for 2 months because of one issue.
Epstein files. Yep. And yeah, again, it just pains me to say it, but
it is, in fairness, a serious issue, though, because a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of women have been hurt.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And minors, right?
Yeah.
No, it's a disgusting thing. And the irony too here is, and Lisa, you're right to remind us of how very serious this stuff was. The irony here is that it was MAGA that turned Epstein into this massive thing, right? So Joe Biden is hiding the Epstein files. As Joe Biden, by the way, I suspect Joe Biden is not in the Epstein files, but anyway, they turned it into this massive, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, because maybe it's true, but then all of a sudden, when they actually have power and they have the files, they're like, oh, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see here. I mean, talk about being eaten by the monster of your own creation.
Right.
So wait, Jim, have you seen more than the general public? Have you seen some of these files, some things that we have not seen?
This is not my world. I've seen a lot of things that no one else has seen that is in the intelligence world, having to do with, Venezuelan boats and that sort of thing. But no, thank God. That's more kind of judiciary stuff that I don't have access to.
Because even the weird birthday notes for Epstein and just horrifying. And again, our government did not work for 2 months, part of it anyway, because of one particular issue. And as you say, Mike Johnson, this just dyed in the wool Christian, is willing to hide this information because of power. And this is hiding for pedophiles and people who hurt girls, as Lisa is reminding us. It's just a terrible, horrific
By the way, let's pause there for 1 second. And I don't like to do this because I really don't like to introduce religion into a political conversation. But who's introducing religion into a political conversation right now? It is the Christian nationalists. Okay, so it's J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States. It's Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who are supporting, and in many instances saying, I mean, didn't the Vice President say something about, well, I would be thrilled if Usha would become my wife, would become a Christian. But here's the point I want to make. We talked a little bit about taking food from poor people.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about, feeding the hungry and clothing the naked and stuff. How can you wear your Christianity on your sleeve and go out of your way to try to take food away from hungry people? Explain that to me.
It makes absolutely no sense. And I don't believe that to be Christianity at all. It isn't. I don't know what the right description is. I don't even want to start going down that road right now, because I'll get all sorts of blowback. But ultimately, by
the way, the Pope is speaking up on this.
I love the Pope.
I know.
He's my buddy.
Yeah.
He's speaking my world.
I fear he may be a hardcore Chicago sports fan, but no, I mean, he's making his points, as did the last Pope. By the way, as should any religious leader, which is, I don't know that there are faith traditions, Judaism, Islam, certainly Christianity, that don't say the poor are especially deserving of your attention and your mercy and your grace. And yet what have these Christian nationalists done? They've turned their back on.
It's incredible. Those are
the very people that Jesus Christ says exactly.
Do it to, what is it? What is the golden rule? Do unto others
what
as
you
they
would have
would
them.
do unto you. That's the golden rule. And I believe that rule actually is across every single religious tradition.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would have done.
Some version of that, right? Golden rule or whatever.
Literally. And so this certainly doesn't connect into
golden rule. Maybe it's going to be in the new White House with all the new gold and golden
letters.
stuff.
Do you see there's no gold letters? Oh my God. I was going to actually ask you about that. Have you seen the overall Oval Office?
I know. It's like you'd see it on the Love Boat where like Lido deck this way.
Have you been in it yet? Have you seen that?
I have stayed out of the White House under the current president.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Is it as heartbreaking to you though to see that destruction,
Oh, the
that
East
imagery,
Wing.
as it has
Yeah.
been to so many of us?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, there's two things. Number one, God daggone it, this thing just looks like it's like gonna be larger than the White House itself. And two, of course, it was done without any consultation. There was a lie. Oh, don't worry, we're not going to touch the East Wing. It's just a classic sort of illustration of everything that Donald Trump is about. I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm not going to play by the rules, and I'm going to build something big and gaudy. You know?
It's heartbreaking. I did hear, again, conspiracy theory or not, that there's going to be a huge data center underneath it. Is there any truth to that?
A data center
Like,
under
holding a lot of information of like, again, who knows?
You know, so since I don't actually know the answer to that question, I can speculate. But you know, as you might imagine, there's a lot of stuff underneath the White House that is important to protecting the president. I don't think it's there though.
No.
It's probably not data.
I'm
maybe
just
TikTok will move their data center under the ballroom.
That would be hilarious. But there is, I mean, we certainly have had a digital coup, which occurred when Doge, or those big balls and whatnot, assaulted our digital, our government, really, and then sucked up all this information. So the question is, where is all that information? It has got to be stored somewhere. And back to that sort of why are electricity costs going up, and they will continue to rise, is because AI and the infrastructure and the running of AI is going to just cost all of us an incredible amount of money to keep it going. But now that, I don't know, maybe it's Palantir, I don't know who has all that information, but it's being cached somewhere. And all of it is going to be compared and looked at without any privacy. I don't know what they're, but
who knows? Who knows?
Where to go?
Again, do you trust Elon Musk to play by the rules, or do you even know the rules? No,
no.
Yeah, again, not an area I do go deep on some things, but I not an area that I'm super knowledgeable about. But yeah, you can imagine that the people who were playing around in the the data reservoirs of the federal government were about as attentive to the rules as they were on everything else. So yeah, it's a real concern.
Very scary. All right, we have to go to a station break. I am Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends, talking to Jim Himes. We'll be right back.
Okay.
I could just keep talking forever.
You found the right niche here.
There we go. Figured out how to end that. Okay.
Right.
So what do you think about like how all of the towns around here went so much bluer? I mean, do you think that's about affordability too? Or, for New Canaan to tie the town council finally, after, I don't know how long it's been, decades, and at least, maybe not ever, I don't know.
It's a really good question. I mean, New Canaan, right? It's going to be a little less about affordability and a little bit more
Westport,
about
their first
these very
selectmen.
affluent towns. More affluent, more educated people are more motivated. I don't need to tell you this, by democracy. Issues that are less kitchen table than Allentown, Pennsylvania is.
Yeah. I think that I don't know if you want to go there, but like, I think that the ICE activity has gotten a lot of people fired up as well.
Yeah.
Seeing what they're doing,
Including
and how
lots of conservatives who are like, look, I'm for secure borders and I want the bad people taken out. But wait a minute, the woman who's in my church who's lived here for 30 years, there's a huge blowback happening from right wingers on the way ICE is doing their things.
And it's, they're being really, I guess because they have this quota, they're being really random about it. They're not checking to see if people are citizens. They're picking up citizens. They're picking up kids. They're tear gas on babies and children at school.
Lots of people lawfully present with green cards and visas and stuff. Yeah. Including by the refugees,
Yeah.
I read that article about the Iranian guy who's
a doctor.
He was hoping, for refuge, and they sent him back.
There are a lot of stories.
But I mean, that guy will die. There's no way he's going to survive. Can we talk about Venezuelan boats?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sure.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we up to, like 76 people killed?
Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And we have no idea, really. How can they prove there's and if I was a like fisherman down in the Caribbean right now, I'd be like, nobody's going to be renting a charter boat anymore.
Right. A lot of these guys, the New York Times ran a piece on it. A lot of these guys, these are not these are guys who are fishermen who are just like getting paid $500 to run a boat up to Trinidad, right? I mean, these are not kingpins. They shouldn't be running drugs. They're not kingpins.
There's
They're just
your theme.
Okay.
Ready?
Hello. This is Trevor Crow, Trevor and Friends, sitting with Representative Jim Himes. We're talking about the election and all sorts of stuff, everything from the ballroom to, I'm going to pivot right now. We were just bringing up the topic of Venezuelan boats and really what is that about? How many boats have been blown up? Do we understand why? And you are a ranking member on the Intelligence Committee,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
So, yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so after like 5 weeks of these boat strikes and the military being engaged, which by the way, the military is supposed to engage pursuant to congressional authority. You can read the Constitution where it says Congress has war-making power. For starters, 5 or 6 weeks into this conflict, you can't even call it a conflict, but military action, they finally started briefing us in classified briefings, a very small group of us. And let me say 2 or 3 things about it. Number one, everybody should scratch their heads and ask themselves how comfortable they are with this president doing something unprecedented, which is to order the military to kill civilians. Now, for 250 years in this country, the military has worked really hard not to kill civilians. Now they say these are drug dealers. Okay, they've always been dealt with in a law enforcement context. Where does it stop? Like, what about, counterfeiters? Are we going to start executing them without trial? So that's a pretty big deal for the military. Secondly, and then we can get to sort of legality of this. Secondly, these boats are carrying cocaine. And they're making a very big deal about the narco terrorists who are killing so many Americans. 90,000-ish Americans die of overdoses, the vast majority from fentanyl. Fentanyl comes from Mexico with Chinese precursors. So cocaine, it's a little complicated. Cocaine sometimes gets mixed with fentanyl, but the point is, and oh, by the way, cocaine doesn't really come out of Venezuela. It comes out of Colombia, right? So there's this involvement of Venezuela because it's important for them to be able to pound on the president there, Maduro. They're getting cocaine, which is not what's killing most Americans. And then finally, I would say this, which is, they've constructed this legal opinion, which says that, okay, well, this is so warlike that we can't deal with it they're terrorists. Now, by the way, they're not terrorists, they're drug dealers.
Right.
And so we need to take it out of the law enforcement realm. But it's not really a war because no, never mind that there's an aircraft carrier and a submarine and F-35s and AC-130. It's not a war because if it were a war, they would actually have to inform Congress and get permission. So they found this weird, non-existent place between war and law enforcement where they say we can just keep killing people every single day and we don't even need to tell the Congress about it.
So I believe it's up to 76 people that we've blown
more or less,
judicially. And oh my goodness, if I wouldn't want to own a fishing boat right now down the Caribbean. Right, that sounds very dangerous. You don't know. You could get literally blown out of the water.
Yeah, look, in our, I get asked a lot, are we sure that there's cocaine on these boats? And, our intelligence community is very, very good, right? I mean, they can point satellites and they can pick up, cell phone conversations and that sort of thing.
Amazing.
So yeah, I do think that, these things are by and large carrying drugs, not to the United States, but to places like Trinidad. But we don't know who's on these boats. And, we have a long, and we can't really talk in detail about this, but, since 9/11, we have executed a lot of lethal action against terrorists. And I'm very familiar with how we do that. And when we do that, we will often watch a terrorist, the Department of Defense will watch a terrorist for weeks. And then they'll wait to take a strike until that terrorist is all by him or herself, usually himself. They'll know who's around because you don't want to kill innocent people. And I don't have any confidence that the same degree of attention is being paid on these willy-nilly strikes.
So in the past, Jim, would you have been consulted as you were kind of tracking these terrorists and waiting and sort of weighing when to strike? Would you be aware of that?
So not consulted, right?
Okay.
So, for example, on the terrorism stuff, they this goes back to the Obama days and before, they would build this big legal structure that had lots of approval processes and we would be informed. And in fact, when a counter-terrorist strike was taken, I would get, 6 or 7 pages on exactly what was done. We're not getting any of that right now. And so
would you get it done? Would you get those pages after the event or right before it?
After, not before. Congress doesn't approve.
I see.
These sorts of things.
Okay.
Now, again, if you read the Constitution, we should be approving the concept of military hostilities against anybody. But there's, there's a reason that Hegseth, every time he talks about this or tweets about it, these are terrorists. They're not terrorists, right? Terrorists are people who want to destabilize our country and kill innocent Americans. This is a distinction worth preserving. Drug dealers want to sell a lot of drugs. And in fact, for most drug dealers, this is true of the mafia, they would rather there be less violence, right? Because violence attracts attention and is bad for business. But,
they're business people.
Yeah, you don't want to sort of grant them that degree of stature.
Yeah.
But no, at the end of the day, they're not about trying to take down America. They're about trying to make money. And, this is why Hegseth, every time he opens his mouth about it, these have to be terrorists. But they're not. They're
Because
not.
that creates a loophole for him, or?
Well, it just makes it a lot more comfortable to have military hardware, big planes with big missiles and bombs, just incinerating fishermen that are out there running bales of cocaine. I mean, most Americans, I would hope, would step back and say, wait a minute, is this right? And even if I think it's right, shouldn't Congress have a say here?
Yeah, it's really wrong. Now, is this sort of a performative toxic masculinity? Not that we should laugh about people dying or being killed or blown out of the water, but it does feel like
I've said that a dozen times. Why do we get these loving videos every time one of these strikes occurs? Pete Hegseth is putting it up on Twitter. It's performative. Like, look at the boat of bad guys. Boom, we took them out. It's performative, right? And what are they going to do? Look, as good as our people are, the military is really good. Our intelligence community, they do make mistakes. And how are we going to feel when they make one of those mistakes and they take out a boat that is running refugees to, I don't know, Dominican Republic?
It's just terrible. All right. So speaking of South America, Argentina, $40 billion, I believe that we, right?
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
So Milei
You're old enough to remember that.
I love Eva Peron, of course.
Yeah, right. We didn't even talk about this with the Golden Ballroom and the Mar-a-Lago party. We don't have money to feed poor Americans, but we got $40 billion for Mr. Milei in Argentina, who we like.
Yes,
we totally forgot to put that on the list.
Now, Scott Bessent, who is our
Secretary of Treasury,
and one of his very good buddies, Rob Citron, had bought a whole bunch of distressed assets down there. And guess what? Is that $40 billion? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is this Citron like from Fairfield
Yes.
County? Okay, all right. Investigative journalism at its best right here on the Trevor Crow Show.
Yeah, no, I know. I've met the Citrons. But this is something where I'm not sure. Have we seen this sort of thing before where our government is almost bailing out some private investors?
So in 1994, when Mexico was going under, who was it, Clinton in 94, right? Yeah, the Clinton administration bailed out Mexico, and it was hugely controversial.
I
really
remember,
was. Yeah, but in the end, it ended up making money for the United States, that bailout, and it stabilized our largest. I don't know if it was at the time, but Mexico and Canada are our largest trading partners. Argentina is not our largest trading partner. And by the way, Argentina has generations of history just collapsing economically. Argentina 100 years ago was one of the wealthiest countries on the planet.
It is a beautiful place.
And it's a beautiful place with amazing
lovely,
food.
Lovely people.
But you wouldn't invest there.
Yes. So let's unpack that a little bit. Would that be considered corruption? I don't know.
Well, is sure, right? I mean, look, $1 million a plate dinners for crypto bros that are going to invest in Eric and Don Jr.'s crypto business. The president's announcement the other day that the Treasury owed him, what was it? $200 million for
$280 million, right?
Yeah, I mean, corruption is part of the software of this administration. I mean, it's sort of amazing to think about it, right? Like, remember the days? It feels like in the Iron Age when I was like, Hunter Biden might have asked his son Hunter Biden might have asked his father to make a phone call to a Ukrainian gas company. Now, like, the president's sons are like totally monetizing.
Oh my goodness, the monetization is unbelievable. I don't know if you know this, but Howard Lutnick, who is I don't know if it's a founder, but he owns Cantor Fitzgerald. He is now Commerce Secretary. His sons have created a paper, a way to trade tariffs.
You've got the goods on the finance types. Oh man, this is what happens when you live in Greenwich. You get the goods on all the finance pros.
So if the Supreme Court decides these tariffs are illegal, guess who profits?
Oh, is that right? Is
Oh
that the way
yeah.
it's been set
Oh
up?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh,
Uh-huh.
another area, right? I mean, again,
Uh-huh.
you can read the Constitution. Tariffs
Uh-huh.
are very much the province of the Congress of the
Mhm,
United
mhm.
States. But
Does this look like the Supreme Court's actually going to stand up to Trump finally?
well, they did. So they it certainly sounded that way when they were doing oral
Mhm,
arguments last week, right? They
mhm,
were really skeptical,
mhm.
and we'll see because the letter. I'm not even a lawyer here, but the letter of the law just could not be more clear. And no president has ever used the IEETA, I guess it is,
Mhm.
to do tariffs generally, but also tariffs. You know, I don't like tariffs, but there's an argument that if the Chinese are like, dumping lots of product on the
Right.
United States, you
Should be
tariff.
fair.
But
Yeah.
but Donald Trump is putting tariffs on Canada because he doesn't like the ad that Ontario ran quoting Ronald Reagan, or putting tariffs on Brazil, 50% tariffs on Brazil because his buddy Bolsonaro, who tried to overthrow the government, is being prosecuted. So you know what? Tariffs, I hope the Supreme Court has the cojones, and I'm not sure that they do because the Supreme Court is
Please,
so in the pocket of this president. But I hope they have the cojones. At least you can't
please.
use the tariffs as like a personal, weapon.
I don't know why not.
Yeah,
If your ego's that fragile,
sure. We
so
could just full on
God.
Roman Empire here,
Oh my God. Okay, so there's one other area where it looks like some people are actually standing up to our president, shockingly, Republicans who refuse to get rid of the filibuster to end this shutdown. So, A, can you explain filibuster to all of us who are listening? Somebody tried asked me to explain it, and I could not do it. And B, why is it important for the Republicans to hang on to it? And C, they were actually willing to say no to Trump.
Yeah, yeah. Let's make the procedural stuff quick here. The filibuster is basically a rule in the Senate, and it says that until 60 senators vote to stop debate, debate continues. So, as a practical matter, you need 60 votes, and as a practical matter, that always means a bunch of Republicans in a Democratic Senate, or a bunch of Democrats in this Republican Senate, to agree to stop debate. And if you can't stop debate, you never get to vote on the underlying legislation. So 60 votes to advance legislation. That's what the thing is here. And there's two arguments about this. One is not very democratic, right? Look, if the American people decide, as they decided 2 years ago, to give Republicans total control in Washington,
Mhm.
they ought to be able to implement their agenda. That's one argument. And if you believe that, you ought to do away with the filibuster. Or if you're Donald Trump and you're just mad because you don't get your way, you do away with the filibuster. The counter argument, which a lot of senators, and this is why they went in Trump's face on this, a lot of senators say, look, it's the only element of our government that forces some bipartisanship.
Okay.
And so that's why you had a bunch, and give them credit for that, right?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
I think this is why I'm asking you about it, because this is the first time I have seen any of those people stand up to that man.
Well, second time, because the week before the Senate took a vote that on three of the president's tariffs, Brazil, and I
Mhm.
can't remember the other two countries, in which a bunch of Republicans voted to shut down Trump's tariffs.
Mm,
So what you see in the Senate is
mhm.
is 5 or 6 Republican senators who will occasionally show a little bit of independence. Susan Collins every once in a while gets out her pen
Mhm.
and writes a sternly worded letter expressing her
Susan.
anxiety and concern. But
Uh-huh.
and I'm making fun of, look,
It's good. It's
it's
all good.
really, really hard to
Yeah.
stand up if you're a Republican, to stand up to them.
Yeah.
The piece of this I don't get. Look,
Uh-huh.
I feel enormously privileged to have my own job,
Uh-huh.
but if I were in their shoes, man, there are things that I would not keep my job to do. And being an
Mm.
acolyte to a president like this one, I don't get why they're not willing to say, what Adam Kinzinger did, what
Mhm.
Liz Cheney did,
Cheney,
which
Liz
is that
Cheney.
no, no, not
Yeah.
not on my
Yeah.
watch. This is happening.
Yeah. And R.I.P. Dick Cheney.
That's right.
He was he was a character.
Yep.
And apparently he did lay the groundwork for this executive privilege or the power, right, that he allowed for, and especially in the fight on terrorists. Um, so Dick did kind of set the precedent, but he voted for Kamala Harris in the end. He would not support Trump.
Yeah. He never, he was always
Oh.
offended. Dick Cheney was the sort of the avatar of old school
Mhm, mhm,
neoconservative
mhm,
Republicans. And of course, there's nothing Republican about Donald Trump, right? I mean,
yeah,
Republicans have always wanted more immigration because it
mhm,
would keep wages down. They've always
mhm.
despised tariffs or government intervention in private
Right.
companies. Right now, Donald Trump is
Anywhere.
like, yeah, I'm taking 10% of Intel. I'm investing in these mining
Unbelievable.
companies. There is nothing Republican about Donald
Right.
Trump.
Can I explain something to anybody listening to right now? By the way, this is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends, here with Jim Himes. Socialism is not a safety net. It's when the government owns business.
Right. right? The commanding heights of the economy, when the government owns that. And we're now in the business of taking stakes in, we're up to something like a dozen different businesses. And the president is constantly saying, we're going to take ownership stakes. If Bernie Sanders said, I'm running for president and I'm going to pick 24 American companies and the government's going to own a chunk of them, oh my God, the right wing and MAGA and the Republicans would go out of their minds. But when Donald Trump does it, well, that's okay.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Seriously.
Oh, and by the way, right, do you remember, again, we're all old enough to remember when the Republicans were the party of limited government.
Yes.
How is it a limited government when the first thing the president does is call up a bunch of law firms and say, you're going to send me $200 million and you're going to do, when you call up a bunch of universities and say, unless you do this, that, and the other thing, I mean, whatever happened to limited government?
It's unbelievable. It's a shakedown.
It's a shakedown, exactly.
Literally, it's got mob roots. So I want to go back to the word terrorist because the people that we've been discussing have been describing our party, Democrats, as enemies. In fact, our president is called the Democrats' enemy. And I believe that they've called people who support or fund democratic causes, they could be terrorists. I'm very concerned about this. Back to the blowing people up in boats that we have really no idea what they've got in those boats, even if it's a small amount of cocaine, right? How do you feel about that? Using words like that in conjunction or describe us as a party?
It's, first of all, it's really dangerous, right? I mean, there's 350-ish million people in this country. If half of 1% of the people of this country hear that rhetoric and say, oh my gosh, that's a terrorist, and I'm going to take my gun and I'm going to go kill a terrorist, you will see an uptick in political violence, as you have seen. So it's fabulously irresponsible language. It's also, there's something kind of icky about it because, this country has problems, no question about it, but you'd rather be here than pretty much anywhere else. Our economy is stronger. Our military is most powerful. Name for me an innovative company that is not American. You can do it, but it's not easy. We are blessed in this country. And to say that, as the president does, that we're circling the drain, that we're going to hell, is a profound betrayal of the concept of gratitude. And the reason that's important is because what we have in this country is two parties with slightly different visions of where we should go. And in a healthy democracy, those two parties make each other better, right? Because they call each other out and stuff. But when you start using words like treason or terrorist or Bolshevik, and let's be fair here, I try to stop this too on my side of the aisle. Every once in a while, somebody's like, oh, well, MAGA, they're Nazis. No, they're not Nazis.
No, we cannot use that word.
Well, the point is, there's no question where the majority of the disgusting rhetoric comes from, because it comes from an Oval Office, right? But let's also take ownership and say, we also need to be careful that we're not, calling people Nazis or we should be better than that. No.
I totally agree. Yeah. I'm just thinking about last week, Tucker Carlson hosted Nick Fuentes on
an actual Nazi.
So
good. Thank you for calling me on that. Yeah, just because.
Well, he's self-professed.
And let's be fair, he's a Holocaust denier and admires Hitler.
I think he actually admires Stalin. Who's worse?
Who's probably, well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into slicing that onion, but okay.
But I think one of the things that the far right does need to start checking itself on is, at what level is this okay or not okay? And when you have a Tucker Carlson who is, he's got a huge platform, and giving somebody like Nick Fuentes an opportunity to speak and spew this horrendous, misogynistic, racist, anti-Semitic, all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's so irresponsible.
And you know what makes me crazy? I hear this all the time. Oh, the extremes of both parties are so annoying. And by the way, look, I was the one who said we got to be careful about calling people Nazis. So let's start there. But okay, let's take Nick Fuentes. Let's take the extreme on the right. Guys who are Holocaust deniers. Folks that really believe that Christianity should be a state religion in this country. Who believe that women should go back to their proper role, making babies and stuff. And then on the left, pick your person who's on the extreme. Most recently, probably Mom Donnie, right? Because Mom Donnie he wants free subway cars and municipal grocery stores. You see how this is not exactly symmetrical.
Right. No, and that's a really good point. Is no, I don't hear the far left calling for the death of a whole bunch of people. Like, anyway, I don't, let's move on to a different topic. So midterms, we've got a lot of candidates starting to set up to think about where we're going to go. We have a couple, like, I'm thinking about John Larson. I know Luke Brown's going to be primarying him. What are your thoughts on what these people need to be thinking about? What's important? Under overs even.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
last Tuesday, the election bodes extremely well
Mhm.
for the Democrats retaking the House of Representatives and maybe even the Senate. Okay. So how do we need to help that happen? Number one, we need to be very careful about the circular firing squad. And I say that right now because there are people who are forgetting that Donald
Mhm.
Trump is behind, stopping SNAP, stopping
Mhm.
Medicaid, et cetera, and have decided that they're going to devote the next year to taking out the 8 Democratic senators who did what they did.
Mhm.
Now, we talked about this already, but we need to really watch the circular firing squad. And we need to take a step more than that, which is to say, hey, look at that. Mamdani won in New York and Abigail
Mhm.
Spanberger won in Virginia. And so what we need to do in the Democratic Party is make sure that people have the room to win in their
Mhm.
geographies.
Mhm.
So I was very sad to see Jared Golden, remarkable member of Congress from
Mm.
Maine, decide he's going to retire
I
because
saw
we could
that.
easily lose that seat. So whoever Democrat needs to run in that district, is probably not going to be
Yeah.
Mamdani. He's probably
No,
going to be more
center,
like,
right?
yeah. And we were talking about this before we got
Mhm.
started here. We don't win seats anymore in the rural Midwest, and we need to think about that.
Mhm.
Ezra Klein, he wrote this piece that you read.
Yes.
We need to think about how do we get bigger.
And what did Ezra suggest?
He suggested that we tone down
Mhm.
our opposition to people who aren't where we are on guns.
Mhm.
Should I say it? Should I say
You're
it?
gonna
Should
have
I
to
say
say
it?
it.
Here's what I'm gonna say. In 2009, when
Uh-huh.
we have 60 votes, 60 seats in the Senate and a majority of like 250 seats in the House,
Mhm.
there's a few pro-lifers in the Democratic Party. All right, I'm not advocating.
It's
I'm
okay.
I'm observing. I'm making a historical observation.
I think what it comes down to is you have to give people room to win in their district.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's a great
And by
way
the
to say it.
way, if there's a pro-life Democrat, go to town. Go to town, but don't take them out in a way that guarantees that a pro-life Republican is going to beat them.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. I agree with that. And I hate, well, Lisa and I are of the same ilk. All people,
And me.
and you, yes, I'm sorry, all three of us.
We're all together.
Everybody should have bodily autonomy. Everybody. I
Yeah.
don't care who, what,
Yeah.
where
Right.
you are, but you get to make the choice for your body. And this is what makes me crazy, is that we would have uneven rights, equal rights, or not equal rights across our country. So that's one of the problems. But to this point, how do we get more Democrats to win? And we're going to have to make that tent a little bigger.
Yep.
Right.
And we can even steer away from reproductive rights, which
Mhm.
obviously people feel
Mhm.
extremely passionate about. I mean, let's talk about guns, and let's talk about guns sitting as we are 30 miles away from Sandy Hook, right?
Mhm.
The truth is, and none of us spend a ton of time in rural Pennsylvania, but the truth is that in Fairfield County, Connecticut, most of us think about guns differently than they do in Eastern Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And you know what? It's all good. It's all good. What we need to do is just not look at people in Eastern Pennsylvania where deer hunting is like practically a religion, dare I say, and say that that's evil and it's wrong
No,
and we
we cannot
disapprove of
do
it.
that.
'Cause
We can't.
we can do that, but we just won't
No.
have people voting for us there.
Yeah, we need to be responsible and make gun ownership legal. And there's a whole bunch of like wraparounds.
And
Of
I think
course.
all we wanted to do is to have legislation that makes owning a gun safer for everybody. We've never
Exactly.
said we want to take away guns.
Exactly.
Right.
So I quickly want to pivot because I do think one of the big takeaways from the Mamdani race is this. And who said it? Josh Elliott said it on the show, and I hadn't heard it until he said it. Gerontocracy for the Democrats. And do you want to tell us what that is?
Did I mention that I ran a 5K race this morning? Did I tell you that? 5K?
I've never been a 5K.
And by the way, I'm older than you.
I was going to
so-
say, all of us are a little worried which side of that fence we're on, aren't we? Right? What do they call us? Middle age, maybe?
No, that would be very generous.
We have a
if you
huge
would.
problem. We have a huge problem. I mean, we don't have time to go into Joe Biden deciding he's going to run for re-election. But and I don't want to name names, but we have a dozen to 2 dozen people in the Congress of the United States who have really lost the spring in their step. And and by the way, it's not even energy and being plugged in. The truth is that probably more than at any other point in history, the 20 and 30-year-olds are consuming media and are speaking to each other and are communicating in ways that no 70 or 80-year-old
We
has
don't
any
get.
clue
We
about.
still don't
Yeah.
get it. I mean, I might be on the little, but
I did 5K this morning.
Yeah.
Did I mention it?
so impressive. So right here in Connecticut, where we're watching, we're keeping a good eye on this. We've had Luke Cronin on the show, John Larson, who I believe is 76 or 77. I don't know exact age, and Luke is going to be primarying him. So there are areas where we're seeing it up close and personal. But like, any thoughts from your perspective? Like,
here's my thought. Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi for a second.
Okay.
Right now, very polarizing figure. Because she stands for a lot of things that Republicans disagree with. But I will tell you this, I don't think there's any Republicans in the Congress who don't respect her for her operational abilities. She just got stuff done, right? And then she steps down from leadership. She didn't have to, and she did. And then last week, she announces her retirement. You know, she is a woman who knows operationally how to get this done. So my hope is that a lot of the other 80-ish, and by the way, it's not age, right? We all have aging parents, right? It's not necessarily numerical age. You know, Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old. I mean, she's got more energy than I do, but even though I did run a 5K this morning. But my point is that hopefully that is a model for people to say, hey, that can be done or should be done.
So we've got 2 minutes left. So one like last thing that I just want to point out, and we might not even have time to talk about it, but young men in New York City voted, I think 57-60% for Mamdani, whereas young men across the country had voted for Trump last year. So we are seeing a shift here, this younger generation being able to connect, and I was really happy to see that. Any last thoughts, and then we got to wrap it.
So 3 things. Number 1, authenticity. You know, like him or hate him, Mamdani is an authentic guy. He says what he was, and he said.
Charisma to be helpful.
Charisma, know how to communicate to young people. We were just talking about this. And 3, focus on the things that they care about, right? I don't think young men are, you know, some of them are prone to toxic masculinity, but you know what? They're having a hard time paying the rent. So talk about paying the rent.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, everybody. How are we doing? Do we have a minute?
We have a minute.
We have one more minute. So I guess last like takeaways from this, any thoughts and ideas for all of us going forward, because it was a very hopeful day. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, two thoughts. I did 2 things I'd really emphasize in this last minute. Number 1, let's stay focused on the economy and on affordability. Let's remember we want to be a big tent party. And then 3rd, and I really do want to say this, you know, we really all need to take more responsibility for more civil rhetoric, right? There's just too many people out there using language that is bad. And I happen to believe it's concentrated in MAGA, but we're not immune either.
We're not immune. And I think we were pretty disciplined ourselves today.
We were.
And you ran a 5K.
Did I mention that?
Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for listening. This is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. It's brought to you by me, trevor.crow.com. I've been having this wonderful conversation with U.S. Representative Jim Hines, and everybody have a great week. And it is snowing out there, so stay safe.